hopes and treasures beyond your broken wing. There are hopes and treasures beyond your broken wing. Ooh.
What's the average age of a man who comes in for counseling? Because I know with my experience, a lot of the time men and women sort of at the edge of the cliff before they actually ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say would be the average age?
That's really tough. I would say the mean age is in their 40s, maybe mid to late 40s. However, I have guys in their 20s and I have guys that come in their 60s.
Wow.
So most of them are in their 40s, maybe late 40s. It seems like that's when they fall off the cliff. That's a good way to put it. Or, you know, the relationship is about ended, or their job may be in jeopardy, or they're just sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know.
Right, everything is, the water's boiling at that point.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's watching this who say hasn't asked for help? Like, it's, to me, isn't it always better sooner than later? And if they say, oh, I'm fine, are they really fine?
It's absolutely better sooner, because if you wait till later, then there's a lot of baggage behind you. There's a lot of spoiled relationships. There's a lot of behaviors that you would rather not have done. I had one young man come in. He came in to see me when he was 19, and he came to the group once or twice, and then he said, I'm not as bad as them. I'm really not as bad. But it haunted him, and he came back just recently after a couple years away, and he said I said, why now? Why are you coming now? And he said, I don't want to get that bad.
Wow, that's great.
Yes.
What a great insight.
Really, he's an amazing young man, and he didn't want to get that bad. And I've had, you know, it's interesting, the guys that come when they're in their 20s, they haven't had a bunch of failed relationships. They haven't had a bunch of job losses, or, you know, or trouble with the law, or they haven't had that yet. They have maybe a little bit, but they haven't had big problems yet. They are unhappy. They know they're unhappy. They often remember what happened to them, and they actually get motivated when they see so many famous people coming forward.
That is huge. I was actually, that's timely, because my next question had to do with Oprah and the 200 show, because I know you have a connection there. So why don't you share that?
Okay. 11 of my clients were on that show. Were in that audience. 11 people from this room. So this is really, that was really exciting. And the interesting thing, the one guy that sat right beside Dr. Fradkin, Howard's a friend of mine, Howard Fradkin, we're both on the male survivor team, facilitator team, and the guy that sat beside Dr. Fradkin in the audience, and then Fradkin got up and sat with Oprah, but the guy sitting beside him right in the front row was one of my clients. And when he first came in to see me, he said, where do you keep your files? Are they under lock and key? What happens after I leave? Do you shred them? I don't want you to write anything down.
Oh, that's funny.
All of that. He didn't want anybody to ever know what happened to him. He was just adamant about that. So there he was, years later, sitting beside Dr. Fradkin in the front row of Oprah. And he had by then told his parents, told his brother, told everyone, you know, he had spoken. I've done talks with the OPP, and we've done conferences. We've done 25 or 26 now around Ontario. Men understanding and responding to male victimization, they're called. And he has spoken on every one of them.
How times change.
And he is free. he is free.
That's what I was going to ask you too, because to me, when people start serving others, it's sort of like that's sort of the path to healing. You start to see that.
Exactly. So he's done remarkable work, and he's helped a lot of people, and he didn't want anybody to ever know he was abused.
So that's funny. Okay, I have a few sort of quick answer type things that I wanted to ask you about. Now, anger sometimes is an issue with these people, would you say?
It's either anger or depression. Anger turned in.
Talk a little bit about those.
Well, it takes a lot of energy to hold anger in and to not express anger. And that often leads to depression. So yes, these guys have a lot of anger, and it may spill out inappropriately. They may have something that they should be, I always describe it like they may have something they should be this angry about, and then they're that angry about it. Like it's yes, they should be angry about something, but not rage about something. And the depressed guys, they don't feel. They depress all of their emotions, so they don't have access to anger, and so they should feel this angry, and they feel nothing. So they're either one or the other, inevitably, one or the other.
Wow, so that's that person, the road rage kind of, like,
Oh yeah.
It's not like I really cut you off. I was just trying to angle into slow traffic, and the person's in the car just
making hand signals,
screaming at you. That
yes,
guy.
And that guy may be the depressed guy. He may be. I know a friend of mine actually, and he's the quietest, gentlest man on earth, but he has road rage.
You gotta let it out somewhere,
I guess.
somehow, or you're gonna implode, right? Okay, so blame. A lot of the guys that I've talked to recently, they actually blame themselves for what happened to them when they were a child.
Absolutely. So often, I will ask guys to bring in a picture of themselves when they were that age, and then let's talk about what that child could have done differently. What could that child have done? One guy told me, I know he was bigger than me, I know he was older than me, but he was a priest, and I am such a loathsome creature because I had sex with a priest. You were 6 years old, you didn't have sex with a priest. A priest violated you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still something that surprised me. I actually used that same situation when I was facilitating a couple weeks ago, the same thing. What could you have possibly done? You're 6 years old. This guy was 8 years. You're 8 years old.
12.
No, it was mine. I should have fought. I should have ran. I should have told. I should have.
And the interesting thing is when they finally do something to make it stop, they may be 5 or 6 or 7 years older, and they think that's all I had to do was say no. But 6 or 7 years older, yeah, you can say no, but not when you're young. And when it starts, you can't make it stop. And maybe your parents are saying, oh, Uncle Joe is such a nice guy, he takes you all these places, and why don't you want to go? And oh, I got a headache, I got a tummy,
So it's the parents there. It's the awareness for anybody who's a parent watching this is to listen to the words that the child is saying.
The other thing the parent needs to understand is that the offender will often groom the parents as well as the child.
Okay, share some about that.
Yeah. So the parents the offender will befriend the parents, will hang out with them, take them out to dinner, invite them over, and the offender can groom the parents as when they're grooming the child.
So they're building the trust with both of them at the same time. The
Absolutely.
parallel, and then they go in.
Absolutely. The young boy that had sex with the priest, I was, yeah, that's awful to even say it. His parents were really groomed. That priest would go over to their house and have dinner with them, and that was such a big deal for the priest to be at your house for dinner. The good, strong Catholic family, that was an honor.
Right, that sounds like a familiar story. I'm thinking that one might be in my book too.
It might be.
Okay, The next thing I have on this list is worthiness. Talk about worthiness, because that self-love is like pretty low with a lot of people that have been violated.
Absolutely, they don't. I have one guy in my group who's an award-winning author, and he doesn't. He says he can't finish anything, and he puts himself down so awfully. So all the time he's always putting himself down. Yet he's written books. He's sold books. He's written plays. He's written. He's just amazing, and yet he feels like he's a loser.
Why?
Yeah, why? It's because he let himself be violated.
Wow, very loose let.
Yes.
Wasn't his choice.
Wasn't his choice, and the acting out behavior after. That is the other part that he blames himself for. He hasn't been able to connect the dots between the violation and the acting out behavior.
Well, there are so many coping strategies, which I always mention, because this is the shame and blame is going to turn into something where you're going to try to mask it, and often you're talking about alcohol and drugs. And
sexual, sexual acting out, having sex with anonymous people or one-night stands, and men often get confused sexual orientation. Because a man violated them and a man found them attractive. Maybe that man saw that they were gay and they weren't gay. Gay men feel like that's all they're good for is sex, and maybe that made them gay, and which is, I try to point out to them that's not what makes you gay. So straight men, they got turned on originally to sex by another man when it's a male violator, and that their body responded to stimulation. Consequently, they have this kind of confusion. Maybe I am gay, or maybe I've met a lot of straight men who will go cruising parks to get gay sex, lots, and they feel awful about it, but they crave it.
Wow, that's very interesting, and that must be very difficult on them, the confusion.
The confusion is horrific, and it also speaks to their low self-image.
There are hopes and treasures beyond your broken wing. There are hopes and treasures beyond your broken wing. Ooh, beyond your